When Destined Rivals comes out in English on May 29th, it will include more than 180 cards in the main set. These come from Japan's Marnie and Steve Index, Heatwave Arena set, and the Glory of Team Rocket set. I've already covered the Marnie and Steve Index, and the Glory of Team Rocket won't be known until next month. This week, though, all of Heatwave Arena was revealed, letting us know 63 of the cards that will be in Destined Rivals. Since this is a set list preview, I'll be going over almost every card, even if they aren't good. And there's a lot of cards that aren't very good. Considering that I've already covered a decent number of them already though, I'll start with the new ones before getting to the old new ones. We start with Yanmega EX, who at first seems as busted as the Yanmega EX from TCG Pocket, until you take the time to fully read the card and understand the meta. When Yanmega moves from the bench to the active spot, you can accelerate 3 grass energy from deck directly to it. That's an absolutely insane ability. And the attack is interesting. For 4 energy, which means you'll need a manual attachment, it does 210. Not the best number, but it can one-shot Charizard EX and Garchomp EX through weakness. The bonus with Jet Cyclone is that you send 3 of those energy to one of your bench Pokemon, potentially powering up your next attacker. There's plenty of ways to use Yanmega to your advantage, with the most obvious being Hydrapple EX. Use Jet Energy, Switch, Prime Catcher, or Surfer to get Yanmega in the active, then attach a rescue board and retreat it. Now you get an instant damage boost of 90 for Hydrapple's attack. Do it again, 90 more. And if you can activate 3 Yanmega in one turn, plus a manual attachment and Hydrapple's ability, it's dealing 360 damage. That probably won't happen, but a handsome man can dream. My issue is that Teal Mask Ogerpon with Hydrapple is a thing right now, and it's not doing a whole lot. Radiant Charizard definitely plays a part in that, but even so, if you do a little math, you'll see that the combo isn't quite there. Get 3 Ogerpon down turn 1, that's a potential 3 energy and a potential draw of 3 cards. Do it again the next turn, that's 3 more energy and 3 more cards. So what you need to do with 2 stage 1 Yanmega in 2 turns, you can do with 3 basic Ogerpon in 2 turns. Okay, where else can it be good? Bramblegast and Regigigas with Scramble Switch are definitely options. Bramblegast flips a coin for each energy attached to it and does 80 damage for each heads, while also getting up to 350 hit points. And Reggie does 330 damage to Terras for 4 energy. So you can retreat into Yanmega, activate its ability, accelerate 3 energy, then use Scramble Switch to put those energy onto whoever you want. Or you can just attack with Yanmega, then send the energy back that way. Honestly, that feels like Goldilocks feat. Instead of maining Yanmega, going for a more toolboxy deck seems just right. Or how about Raging Bolt EX? Well, just like with Hydrapple, the Ogerpon build is better and faster. I'm basing this on the fact that Iono's Belly Bolt with Raging Bolt hasn't been very successful in Japan, despite them sharing the required lightning energy and drawing cards. I know Yanmega and Palafin aren't the exact same, but they do have similar strategies, being stage 1s that require switch cards. While Palafin is a powerful card on its own that's been Palafun to play with at times, it's not particularly strong. And that's kind of how I view Yanmega. A great card that doesn't quite have a definitive place in Standard right now. It's also playable with Toadstool EX and Energy Switch. Problem is, every single strategy I try to come up with for Yanmega, it just seems like Teal Masked Ogerpon is better. Yanmega requires switch cards plus a stage 1 line, whereas Ogerpon is a basic that accelerates 1 energy and draws you 1 card. I'll cover Japanese lists starting in a week or so, but until then, if you can think of any busted ideas for Yanmega, comment them below. Because a lot of people online seem to think this is one of the greatest cards ever made. I'm a little more skeptical. Before I show you Electivire EX, let me first show you this baby Electivire from Brilliant Stars that will be rotating out of Standard on March 27th. For a reversal energy, it spreads 50 damage to all of your opponent's Pokemon. Not great, especially in a format with a basic bench barrier Pokemon. So Electivire EX must be loads better, right? Well, for 2 energy, Electivire EX does 50 damage to just 2 of your opponent's Pokemon. And for 3 energy, it does less damage than both of these terrible Pikachu EX cards no one's ever used. The only saving grace is that it can deal 280 damage, but you need 5 energy. So maybe it could be a 1-1 line in Miraidon to take bigger one-hit KOs, but you'd have to get an Electabuzz down early and probably attach an experience share. Or you could use Counter Gain and waste 2 electric generators to not even do enough to KO Dragapult or Charizard unless you attach a maximum belt. But you'd want to put Heavy Baton on Electivire instead of a damage modifier because it has a 4 retreat cost. The only other option is pairing it with Magneton. It's definitely possible as Magneton blows itself and accelerates 3 energy to your Lightning Pokemon. Unfortunately, it gives up a prize card when doing so. And in order to get Electivire into play, you need to evolve through an Electabuzz, which gives up 1 prize when it's knocked out. The reason Magneton works with Miraidon now is because it has no other single prizers, meaning giving them a prize doesn't matter all that much, and the rotating Raikou V and Raichu V can take one-shots. I don't know, it just feels like Electivire is a lot of work for not a lot of payoff. I hope to be proven wrong, but I don't think it will see a ton of play. The reason I have Blood Moon Ursaluna EX on screen next to Dondozo EX is that they're both 2 prize basics with 260 hit points. And yes, I need to clarify that they're 2 prize basics because we might be returning to a world of 3 prize basics later this year when Mega Evolution arrives. But I want you to make the comparison. Would you rather have Dondozo, who can deal 240 damage for 4 energy, punching itself in the face for 50? Or Ursaluna, who can do 240 damage for as little as 0 energy? Yeah, it's barely a competition. Maybe if Dondozo had a busted ability or 300 hit points, you could take advantage of its first attack, which does 30 base damage plus 10 more for each damage counter on it. Sure, there's Hero's Cape and Survival Brace, but hoping your opponent plays into your predictable strategy isn't viable. Dondozo can use Heavy Baton, but because of its first attack, Bravery Charm seems like the much better option. And let's not forget that Chenpao does 240 for 2 energy, except it's just an all-around much better card. Dondozo? More like Dundozo, am I right? Now that I've covered that horrible Dondozo card that no one with half a brain would ever even bother thinking about again, I have to get a little mean. What was the point of making Trainers Pokemon the big mechanic for 2025 when the game designers clearly don't care about them? Every other trainer has an EX. Hop has Zacian, Lily has Clefairy, and Team Rocket will presumably have Mewtwo. But Misty, the 10th or so revealed trainer, doesn't get one. Nor does she get a trainer card to help out her non-EX Pokemon. And with Mega Evolution arriving later this year and Trainers Pokemon likely disappearing, they've apparently already given up after just 2 sets. Along with her Magikarp and Staryu, this is every card Misty is getting in Heatwave Arena. It's honestly insulting. There's only one thing you can do, and that's create a Gyarados deck with 4 Sacred Ash, hoping to take big one-hit KOs. It'll work as a rogue deck, but that's about it. For those who haven't seen it before, Misty's Gyarados discards the top 7 cards of your deck and deals 70 damage for each Misty's Pokemon you find there. If you have 4 copies of all 6 of her Pokemon, you can put 24 total in your deck. Eat some Sacred Ash while playing with your Super Odd as Miriam watches, and you can put those Pokemon back into your deck very easily. So again, it's absolutely going to be a rogue deck. But if you're going to make Misty one of the footful of trainers that get featured in a set this year, why not put a little effort into her cards? The good news is that Arven has an EX. The bad news is that all of his cards are dog water. Because his signature Pokemon is Mabostiff. Listen, okay, I already made too many jokes about this card making Maboss soft. I tried to come up with something different this time. Anyways, in my preview of Arven a few weeks ago, I said his whole archetype was terrible. While I may have had some hope that they were saving a secret busted card, I knew there wasn't much that could save him. It seems like the Pokemon Company shared that sentiment because they didn't bother making him playable. Honestly, I'm not even sure what the strategy is supposed to be. Mabostiff EX does 150 damage for 1 energy if it's undamaged. Arven Sandwich heals it, and Greedent makes used sandwiches reappear like how spaceships reuse urine as drinking water, but that's not good enough. Mabostiff only has 270 hit points. Raging Bolt's one-shotting that for 4 energy. And you're 2-shotting Raging Bolt. While you might think it's strong against Dragapult, Mabostiff 3-shots a freaking Dragapult. And you'll eventually run out of sandwiches. The only newly revealed Arven's card was his Toedscruel. It does 120 damage for 3 energy and chokes itself with its tentacles for 30. Literally useless. Okay, I promise it's all happy pilot from here. I've been way too pessimistic up to this point, so let's change that. Where Misty and Arven failed, Ethan is insane. Not only can you build 2 different, new strong Dextramus cards, but his Ho-Oh EX makes a Fire Toolbox deck insanely powerful. Starting with Magcargo and Ho-Oh, Magcargo can discard up to 5 energy from itself, then deal 70 damage for each energy discarded that way. So it can reach 350 damage, which is enough to one-shot everything until Mega Gardevoir EX comes out. In order to get that energy on Magcargo, you use Ho-Oh EX's ability, which accelerates 2 fire energy from hand to one of your benched Ethan's Pokemon. You can do this once per Ho-Oh per turn, so get 2 down, plus a manual attachment, and you're one-shotting Terras all day. That's Ethan's first playable deck. The second is Typhlosion. Body Blast does 40 base damage plus 60 more for each Ethan's adventure in your discard pile. Either use Brilliant Blender or Quilava's ability to fill up your discard. Get 4 in there, Typhlosion's hitting 280. Prizing could be an issue, so a copy of Exchange Ticket is a good idea, even if Exchange Ticket isn't the most targeted way to find the best cards out of your prizes. Still, this is absolutely a deck, and with a couple damage buffs here and there, it's winning against Terras as well. Finally, putting Ho-Oh EX in an Armor Rouge Toolbox deck. Because Ho-Oh can accelerate to itself, you can get as much as 8 energy into play in one turn. Then it's all about the right partners. Since you're already running Char Cadet, Armor Rouge EX is a great option, dealing 40 plus 40 for each energy attached to it. And if it has full HP, it takes 80 less damage. Regigigas is another strong option, one-shotting Terras. Or Iron Hands EX with Luminous Energy for low HP basics. Or really anything else you can think of. So where Misty and Arvin create maybe half a deck combined, Ethan himself is responsible for 3. I'm not great at math, but even I know that's odd, not Ethan. Oh, and I guess I should mention Ethan's other Pokemon. Yeah, he has more. His Pinsir is a great revenge attacker, one-shotting Charizard EX and Garchomp EX if any of your Ethan's Pokemon were just knocked out by damage from an attack. He also gets a Pichu that one-shots Badoo and draws you a card, as well as a Sudowoodo that should only be used in desperation situations. Just like Ethan, Cynthia represents a trainer with playable cards. Imagine that! Her headliner is Garchomp EX, which does 100 damage for a single fighting energy and draws you up to 6. Then for 2 fighting energy, Dragon Blaster hits for 260, though you do have to discard all attached energy. While Garchomp isn't the best on its own, it has a lot of support. Gabite can search out any Cynthia's Pokemon, making the deck more consistent. While Roserade boosts the damage of Cynthia's Pokemon by 30, and it stacks. So you can absolutely pair Garchomp with Roserade and have a serviceable deck. But there's a couple other cards you can use for another strategy. Attach Power Weight to Garchomp, now it has 400 hit points. Let it take a hit, retreat for free, then use Spiritomb, which does 10 damage for each damage counter on your bench Cynthia's Pokemon. With enough strategery, you can be one-shotting everyone in the game for a single energy with a 70 hit point basic. We also learned about her Feebas and Milotic. I'm not saying Milotic is unplayable, but 60 damage to their active and 30 damage to 2 on the bench is only a somewhat passable attack if a basic bench barrier Pokemon doesn't exist. Which leads me to Shaman. Put it into play, now all of your bench non-rule box Pokemon are protected from damage from attacks. Even after my previous video, there's still daily posts on the TCG Live subreddit about why Manaphy doesn't stop damage counters from Dragapult EX. It's because damage and damage counters are two completely different things. Jirachi will stop damage counters, but only if they come from basic Pokemon. Dragapult EX is a stage 2, so it wouldn't work there. Rabska, meanwhile, will stop damage counters as they're ineffective in attack. Like I said before, it can be very confusing for new players, so just remember that damage does not equal damage counters. With Manaphy leaving due to rotation, we will go 2 months without a bench barrier basic. Since Radiant Greninja is also gone on the 27th, our best bench sniper leaves standard. Post-rotation, Darmanitan in an Ends deck and Kyurem and Slowking are the best options, so you might want to run Rabska in those 2 months. Though if my experience is anything to go by, they'll get Dragapult EX down turn 2 and KO your Naked Relor because you couldn't find your Rabska in time. Then when Shaman arrives, protecting Dracloak from Darmanitan and Kyurem, damage-spreading decks will fade away into obscurity once again. Just like the Mimikyu and Aegislash currently available in Standard, Destined Rivals Crustle will be immune to damage from Pokemon EX. So now we'll have a basic Stage 1 and Stage 2 that can infuriate people who didn't bother teching for these cards. One benefit of Crustle is that Dwebel's attack immediately evolves into it. Crustle also has the same amount of hit points as Aegislash, meaning it's tougher to knock out. And you can attach a Luxurious Cape to give it 250 hit points while also using a Reversal Energy to attack with the exact same attack as Aegislash. Yeah, they didn't really put a ton of thought into Crustle. They basically just copy and pasted Aegislash's text and changed the name. Still, these types of cards always have some level of playability. One of the cards I'm most excited for is Hydrapple. Discard 6 grass energy from your hand, knock out your opponent's active. It's going to take a lot of work, especially considering that this is a Stage 2 Pokemon, but imagine how many views a YouTube video featuring this card will get. You'll have to use things like Earthen Vessel and Letter of Encouragement to get the energy into your hand early, then Superior Energy Retrieval and Max Rod to get them back late. But if Mega Evolution Pokemon become highly playable later this year, you only have to use Hydro Breath twice to win the game. Part of my disdain in this video comes from the fact that it feels like the developers didn't put much effort into some of their cards. Case in point, every Ogerpon. While every EX Ogerpon is playable except for the red-headed stepchild, none of the baby ones are. The first attack merely accelerates an energy of their type to one of your Pokemon, and the second attacks cost 3 energy, do no more than 120 damage, and have absolutely useless secondary effects. Since I'm already ranting, can we talk about how the word ogre in Ogerpon and Ogre's Mask is spelled differently? Shrek would be so disappointed. To those of you who couldn't solve the riddle in my last video, the answer was Weirdeer. As in, Rapidash allows you to draw one card, but is never going to see play, just like Weirdeer from Astral Radiance. Floatzel's first attack does 30 damage and is a guaranteed energy discard from your opponent's active, except we already have a Gumshoes that does the same thing with more damage and nobody uses it. Sure, Floatzel does 140 with its second attack, but that's not good enough. Manectric, meanwhile, is garbage. It only does 120 damage with the drawback of dealing 40 damage to one of your Pokemon. Yeah, this is probably the last and first time you'll ever hear anyone talk about these cards. I've always been a fan of the whole tool drop archetype. Unfortunately, I tried to make Pachirisu Honchkrow work as part of my pre-rotation streams, and it didn't go great. Rotom also does 30 damage for each tool attached to all of your Pokemon, which means you can deal a ton of damage. However, Honchkrow and Double Turbo Energy are rotating, so you mostly have to rely on Electric Generator and Revavroom EX with Rotom, making an already rough deck require an extra turn to get set up. Zeraora isn't unplayable. You can put it on the bench in a Miraidon deck and attach an Experience Share or power it up with Electric Generator or Magneton. Then for 3 Lightning Energy, it does 210 damage to one of your opponent's bench Pokemon EX. That's pretty much only going to knock out a Fezandipiti or Lily's Clefairy since Tealmask Ogerpon has a built-in bench barrier. So you have to ask yourself this question: why aren't you subscribed to me? Also, is it worth spending this much time and effort to maybe knock out a Fezandipiti or Clefairy when Miraidon EX can already do that with a Gust card without losing all the energy in the process? And the answer is, honestly, maybe. Adding 2 cards to the filler pile to pad out the 63 card set size of Heatwave Arena, we have Mudsdale and Tauros. Mudsdale takes 30 less damage from attacks and does 130 damage for 3 energy. Tauros does 100 damage to evolution Pokemon. Now let us never speak of these cards again. In terms of new trainers, there's the aforementioned Ethan's Adventure, Cynthia's Powerweight, and Arvin's Sandwich, as well as Sacred Ash. Putting Miriam to Shaman, Sacred Ash is an item that shuffles 5 Pokemon from the discard pile into your deck. We're also getting Energy Recycler and Destined Rivals, meaning you might be taking Super Rod out of your deck in a few months. We also have MC's Hype Up, which ironically isn't hype. It's a draw 2 and draw 2 more if they have 3 or fewer prizes remaining. So like every other draw 4 with a caveat supporter, it'll go in the bulk bin. For the other trainers, well, there aren't any. What's interesting is that Switch and Pokemon Catcher are getting reissues with the same artwork, while Judge is getting a reissue with a cool artwork. I say reissue instead of reprint because all 3 still carry the G regulation mark, whereas every other card in Destined Rivals is from the I block. So their legality won't reset, and as it stands now, all of them will rotate in March 2026. Overall, if you couldn't tell, the trainers here are lacking. If you want my thoughts on Heatwave Arena, it seems alright. The highlights are definitely Ethan's cards, Cynthia's cards, Yanmega EX, and I guess Sacred Ash because I refuse to praise Shaman. At just 63 cards, it seems like at least a third of them are playable, which is a low number, but when it comes to the Pokemon TCG, that number's unheard of. Next up is the Glory of Team Rocket, which comes out in Japan on April 18th, which will have around 100 cards. It should be a fairly exciting set, so stay tuned for reveals in the coming weeks. For now, though, let me know how wrong I am about Yanmega EX and Electivire EX in the comments.